I wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't even hungry. It was one of those moments where your body moves before your mind has a reason. I left the office early, not because I had a meeting or an errand, but because the silence in my head had gotten loud again. You know what I mean? That dull, constant hum of something's not right. So I drove. Aimless, really. Until I ended up outside that cafe on Beechwood, the one with the squeaky door and the overwatered plants. The one she said had the best chamomile in town, like that mattered. Elira. That's her name. Strange name, beautiful woman. She used to spell it out for people, Eli Ray, like a song. I used to think everything about her was poetic. Even the way she stirred sugar into her tea. Now, I wonder how much of that was real, and how much I just needed to believe was real. As I stepped inside the cafe, I caught a glimpse of her through the glass. She was sitting at a corner table, 2 mugs in front of her, and across from her was a man I'd never seen before. He leaned in as he spoke. She laughed. That laugh. It was softer than the one she used with me. Warmer. Freer. Then her hand touched his. Not by accident. Not one of those polite touches you give a stranger. It lingered. It said things that words didn't. I stood frozen. Not angry. Not heartbroken. Just still. Like my brain was waiting for some explanation to catch up, for the world to whisper, "No, you're not seeing this. That's not your wife. That's not what you think." But it was. And it was exactly what I thought. I didn't walk over. I didn't make a scene. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, one I had written 2 nights ago, when something in my gut told me things had shifted for good. I never meant to use it. I wrote it like a prayer, like a warning to myself. But now, it felt like a lifeline. I stepped forward, calmly, and placed the note beside her cup. She looked up, her smile freezing mid-breath as she saw me. Her eyes widened, but I didn't say a word. I didn't look at the man across from her. I didn't need to. I walked out. I don't remember driving home. I don't even remember unlocking the front door. I just remember sitting in the kitchen, staring at the empty chair across from mine, the one she used to pull close on cold evenings, and realizing it would never hold her again. The note simply said, "Don't come home." But what she did next. It wasn't silence. It wasn't regret. It was something I never could have imagined. And I'll tell you what happened, but you need to understand what kind of woman she really was first. Because nothing makes sense until you see the mask fall. The first thing I noticed when I got home wasn't her absence. It was the way the house didn't react to me. No creak from the floorboard near the stairs. No kettle hissing on the stove. No faint hum of her music playing from the study. Just silence. Like the place had already decided she didn't live there anymore, and it was adjusting without asking me. I sat on the couch, fully dressed in my work clothes, coat still on, hands flat against my knees like I was waiting for someone to issue orders. But none came. An hour passed. Then another. Still nothing. No message from her. No missed call. I stared at my phone as if it were broken, as if her name would flash onto the screen if I tapped hard enough. Instead, a notification. It wasn't a message. It was a photo. Public. Posted to her story. Her face filled the frame, sunlit, careless, a strand of hair tucked behind her ear. You wouldn't think she had just locked eyes with her husband while holding another man's hand in a cafe. You wouldn't think she'd been handed a silent, final goodbye just hours before. There was a caption. Some moments don't need permission. I stared at those words for a long time. Not because they hurt, not yet, but because I realized I didn't understand the woman who wrote them. And maybe never had. What kind of person did this? Not privately. Not in grief. Not with guilt. But, proudly. The pain didn't come all at once. It was more like a shifting of gravity, a slow realization that my reality had changed, but no one had bothered to warn me. I stood up, walked into the kitchen, and opened the fridge. There was still leftover soup from 2 nights ago. The one she said she didn't want because she wasn't feeling great. She wasn't sick. She was distant. That night, I slept on top of the covers. Not out of protest. I just couldn't convince myself to pretend it was normal. My phone buzzed around 1:14 a.m. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "She's safe. Don't make this harder than it has to be." No name. No punctuation. Just that sentence. I didn't respond. What would I even say? Thanks for the update on my wife? Please return the woman who just burned our life down and posted it like a vacation selfie? Instead, I turned the screen off and set the phone face down. I lay there staring at the ceiling, not thinking, not dreaming, just breathing. And sometime before the sun came up, I realized something that chilled me far more than betrayal ever could. She wasn't done yet. This wasn't her final act. It was just her opening scene. I didn't leave the house that weekend. Didn't shave, didn't open the curtains, didn't even bother turning on the lights unless I had to. Not because I was angry or broken. At least not in the way people imagine when they picture someone dealing with betrayal. It wasn't like I was screaming into pillows or punching walls. No, that's not what it looked like for me. For me, it was quieter. Much quieter. I just sat there, slowly coming to terms with the idea that I had become background noise in my own life, that I had been edited out of the story without being told the chapter was over. I kept checking my phone, not because I expected her to write. I knew she wouldn't, but because I couldn't quite stop myself from hoping there would be something. A moment of decency. A line that started with, "I'm sorry," or even a pathetic, "Can we talk?" But there was nothing. No missed calls. No texts. Only her story updates, which she continued posting like nothing had happened. Pictures of brunch. A drink with a lemon wedge on the rim. A blurry photo of what looked like her feet in someone else's lap, the caption reading, "Finally at peace." That one stayed in my mind longer than I'd like to admit. And the silence between those photos was louder than anything she could have said. I tried to figure out where it started, not the cheating, but the detachment. When had I stopped being the person she wanted to sit beside at brunch? When had I become the roommate she avoided? You don't notice it when it happens. At least I didn't. You get used to the missed kisses, the vague answers, the way she always seemed to be texting someone else under the dinner table. You convince yourself people just change. They get tired. Work is hard. Stress happens. You learn to live inside the pauses, to fill them with explanations that make the silence easier to live with. But then a moment like that cafe happens, and all the little lies line up like dominoes. And you're just sitting in the wreckage of your own blind loyalty. Sunday night, around 9 p.m., I finally heard the garage door. I thought it was my imagination at first, that maybe I was half asleep and hearing things I wanted. But no, it was real. I stood in the hallway and watched the door open. She stepped in like she'd just come back from a walk, keys in hand, bag over her shoulder, wearing that neutral expression that used to mean she had something to say but wasn't ready to say it. Only this time, I could tell, there was nothing she wanted to say. She wasn't searching for an apology. She wasn't hoping I'd ask questions. She was there for something else. I said nothing. Just stood there, staring at her like she was a memory that had somehow materialized. She looked at me, then glanced past me, like checking to make sure everything was still where she left it. Then she said something so casual, so impossibly cold, I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was surreal. She said, "I just came for a few things. You can go back to whatever you were doing." I didn't respond. I watched as she walked past me into our bedroom, grabbed 2 drawers of clothes without folding them, stuffed them into a suitcase, and unplugged her charger from the nightstand. She didn't even glance at the framed photo of us from that vacation in Carmel, the one she used to say captured her happiest self. That photo meant everything to me. It was the last time I remembered her looking at me with actual joy. Before she left, she paused at the front door. Her hand rested on the handle for a second, and I wondered if she was about to turn around. If there was one piece of her still holding on. But all she said was, "I'll send someone for the rest next week." Then she was gone. And the moment the door clicked shut, something inside me sank. Not because she left, but because, for the first time in our 13 years together, I realized I didn't want her to come back. That was the night I understood. The woman I fell in love with no longer existed. And maybe hadn't for a while. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of what she said. There wasn't much to hold on to, anyway. No confession. No apology. Not even a goodbye that resembled a sentence. She came, took what she wanted, and left the rest in silence. And somehow, the silence was louder than anything she could have shouted. I didn't walk through the rooms like you see in movies. I didn't tear through closets, or stare at old photos, or dig through drawers looking for signs of who she'd become. Instead, I just sat on the armrest of the couch, staring at the corner where her yoga mat always used to be rolled up. It was gone now. Not a trace of it. Just the faint smell of her perfume in the air, something floral I could never quite name. It clung to the fabric of the living room like it hadn't gotten the memo she wasn't coming back. I thought about how many hours we spent here. Ordinary things, folding laundry while some dumb show played in the background, arguing over takeout, laughing at things only we found funny. All those hours, and yet none of them prepared me for this version of her. The version that didn't flinch walking out. The version that didn't even glance back at me as the door closed behind her. At 3:18 a.m., I opened the fridge, poured a glass of orange juice, and realized I hadn't eaten in over 24 hours. I didn't feel hungry. Just blank. Like the body knew something was missing but didn't bother asking for it anymore. I walked into our bedroom, no, my bedroom now, and noticed how uneven the bed looked. Her side was already losing its shape. The little dip where her hip used to rest was softening, as if the mattress itself was starting to forget her. I didn't cry. Still haven't. I think maybe that's the strangest part. It's not that I don't feel the loss. I do, but it's not sharp. It's slow. Like watching water disappear from a glass over days, until one morning you look and it's gone, and you can't even remember drinking it. That next morning, I walked outside to grab the paper. The sun was out, but the light felt wrong. Not because of the weather, but because I wasn't ready to see the world moving forward like it hadn't noticed my life had hit pause. A neighbor waved. I nodded back, pretending. What else could I do? I stood in the driveway longer than I meant to, watching cars pass, dogs being walked, someone watering their garden across the street. The world didn't owe me a pause button, but part of me still resented that it didn't even blink. I went back inside. The house was still quiet, still unfamiliar, and I thought, maybe that's the cruelest part of all this. She didn't leave a mess behind. No shattered plates. No notes ripped in half. No slammed doors. Just space. And absence. And somehow, that emptiness hurts worse than any goodbye ever could. It's strange what you notice when everything else has stopped mattering. Like the quiet buzz from the fridge that you never heard before. Or the way the shower tiles hold heat longer on one side. Or how one of her hair ties was still looped around the base of the lamp on her nightstand, like a forgotten thought. I saw it when I turned off the light. That night was the first time I slept in the dark since she left. I'd been leaving lights on. All of them, actually. Not because I was scared, just because the silence felt heavier when it was dark. But that night I turned everything off, maybe to see if I could live inside the quiet. Maybe to see if something inside me would speak when the rest of the house didn't. Instead, I lay awake and felt nothing at all. Somewhere around 2 a.m., I shifted and felt something against my ankle. Small. Cool to the touch. Her bracelet, the one with the tiny copper circle she said reminded her of the moon. She used to wear it every day until about a month ago. I thought she just misplaced it. Now I wonder if she just didn't care anymore. I didn't pick it up. I didn't move it. I left it exactly where it fell, like the rest of her, once a part of my world, now just something I can't quite reach without feeling like I'm trespassing. In the morning, I sat in my car and didn't start the engine. I was supposed to go to work. I didn't. I sat there and stared at the dashboard clock for almost an hour, waiting to feel like a person again. Eventually, I went back inside. I opened my laptop and stared at the blank screen, and instead of replying to emails, I typed something into the search bar I didn't think I'd ever type. When your spouse leaves without a reason. Not cheated. Not divorce. I didn't want those words. I just wanted to know if anyone else had ever had their life up and vanish without the decency of explanation. There were stories. Some worse than mine. Some not even close. But it didn't help. Because none of them were her. And none of them were me. The thing is, I don't even feel angry. Not yet. That's what keeps confusing me. I keep expecting rage to come. It doesn't. What comes is something quieter. Like walking into your childhood home and realizing someone else's furniture is there now. That night, I cooked dinner. For two. By habit. I set both plates down, looked across the table, and laughed once. Just once, sharp and bitter, and gone in a second. I didn't eat mine. I put both plates in the fridge. Like maybe tomorrow she'd show up. Like maybe tomorrow I'd want to eat again. The room didn't change after she left, but something about the space between objects did. The gaps felt wrong. I walked into the kitchen yesterday, barefoot, and stepped where the rug used to be, the little woven one she bought during a trip we didn't even enjoy. She took it. Of all things. Not the blender. Not the pan she loved for Sunday pancakes. Just that rug. It hit me then, not all at once, but in waves I couldn't prepare for. She hadn't just packed clothes and a charger. She'd been taking things little by little for weeks. Subtle shifts I'd mistaken for bad memory. A mug missing. A sweater I assumed was in the laundry. But now I saw the pattern. And I started wondering how long she'd been preparing her exit before I saw her hand on someone else's. It's embarrassing how easy it is to lie to yourself when you need to. The mind edits what it can't handle. It fills in blanks with excuses. I convinced myself she was tired from work, that she needed space, that maybe she was going through something she didn't know how to talk about. But the silence wasn't accidental. It was practiced. Rehearsed. The way she said, "I'll be home late," didn't sound like a question because it wasn't. It was a script she'd already written a new life around. I made coffee this morning and caught myself pouring 2 cups again. I left hers on the table, watched the steam rise and disappear. No one drank it. No one would. But I couldn't bring myself to pour just one. Not yet. My hand did it before I had time to stop it, and something about that reflex was worse than the betrayal itself. The fact that my body still hadn't adjusted. That muscle memory was stronger than heartbreak. Around noon, I found myself standing in the hallway talking aloud. Not yelling. Not muttering. Just narrating. "Keys are still here," I said, noticing her spare set still hanging. Then, funny how she didn't take the book she never finished, when I saw the novel half buried on the couch. I don't know who I was talking to. Maybe the house. Maybe myself. Maybe her, as if some invisible trace of her was still listening. That's when I started walking room to room, slowly, like I was cataloging my own home for the first time. And in every corner, I found evidence not of her presence, but of her planning. The jewelry box had fewer things than I remembered. The hallway closet had no trace of her shoes. She didn't leave in a rush. She'd been leaving long before I noticed. And I was too busy hoping things would fix themselves to look closely. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding one of the pillows she didn't take. The scent was faint now, but there. That part is cruel. How long a smell can survive after someone decides you're not enough. I should have washed it. I didn't. I just sat there, holding it like it might still mean something. I haven't told anyone. Not my brother. Not the people at work. I still show up, still log in, still type out emails like everything is fine. But sometimes I forget I'm supposed to respond. I just sit there, staring at the blinking cursor, like it's waiting for something more honest than I know how to give. And this is the part no one talks about. Not the confrontation, not the cheating, not the ending, but the after. The middle of it all, when life hasn't restarted but the old version is gone. The way it feels to stand in your own home and realize the air is different. Not heavy, not sad, just unfamiliar. Like someone tilted your world half an inch to the left, and now nothing fits the way it used to. I haven't cried. Not because I'm strong. I think it's because I still don't believe it's over. Not really. Part of me is waiting for a knock on the door. For her to walk in like nothing happened. For her to ask if I want tea, or tell me we forgot to pay the water bill, or remind me that the dog we don't have is due for a checkup. That ridiculous little domestic rhythm I never appreciated until it vanished. But the longer I sit in the quiet, the more I know she's not coming back. And maybe the scariest part of all is that if she did, I wouldn't know what to say. I don't know who I am to her anymore. I'm not her husband. I'm not her mistake. I'm not even part of her story. I'm just the silence between someone else's beginning and end. It's not that I forgot how to feel. It's that feelings stopped arriving on time. Like they got stuck in traffic. Or lost my new address. Lately, I've been noticing the wrong things. For example, the dishwasher still works, but the third setting on the knob doesn't click into place the way it used to. Or that the lamp in the living room casts a soft shadow on the ceiling that looks vaguely like a mushroom cloud. Or that her favorite wine glass is gone, but the chipped one she always avoided is still here, like she left me the broken things on purpose. That's how most days feel now. Like walking through a museum curated by someone who didn't like me very much. I sat at the dining table yesterday and watched a spider rebuild its web in the window corner. I let it. I watched it work for almost 20 minutes without even blinking. The movement made more sense than anything else lately. No questions. No betrayal. Just instinct. Just structure. Thread after thread. It didn't wonder where the old web went. It didn't panic. It just started again. And I thought, maybe I should take notes. But I didn't. I just kept sitting there. A few hours later, I heard a car slow down outside. The tires rolled over the loose gravel patch near the curb, the one she always asked me to fix. My body stiffened, and I stood too fast, heart racing like something urgent was happening. Like maybe she'd returned for some unfinished part of us. But it wasn't her. It was a delivery truck for the neighbors. They ordered patio chairs. That's what betrayal does when it leaves no scars. It turns every sound into a possibility, every silence into a question, every ordinary thing into a threat or a promise you can't quite translate. I tried calling my sister that night. She picked up on the second ring, asked how I was. I said, still here, and we both understood that was the whole answer. We talked about our parents, the news. She asked if I needed anything, and I said no. Because honestly, I don't know what to need. After we hung up, I stared at the TV. It was off. Just a black screen reflecting a man who looked like he'd lived a long time in a short amount of space. I don't know when my shoulders started slumping like that. I don't remember the last time I looked in a mirror and saw someone I recognized. I tried to journal. Not the emotional kind, just observations. A list. I titled the page, "What's Still Here?" I wrote, one chair pushed slightly further back than the other. Her charger cable in the junk drawer. A box of couscous she bought, but never cooked. My toothbrush, unopened, because I've been using hers without realizing it. 3 missed calls from a number I don't want to call back. That was it. I closed the notebook and placed it in the freezer. No reason. It just felt safer there. Like I was trying to slow down the spoilage. People think heartbreak looks like chaos. Tears. Screaming. Shattered things. But this part, it's the static. The part where everything stays exactly where it was, but nothing is alive anymore. That's what this house feels like now. Not empty. Just paused. Like she hit mute and forgot to press play again. This morning, I opened the windows. No reason. The air wasn't warmer than usual. The sun wasn't especially kind. But something told me it was time. The kind of quiet urge that doesn't come from logic, just from somewhere deeper, a part of me I hadn't heard from in a while. I unlatched the windows one by one, letting the breeze move through the rooms, lifting curtains that hadn't shifted in weeks. For the first time in a long time, the house didn't feel like a waiting room. It just felt lived in. There's no neat ending to this story. No final text from her. No letter slipped under the door. I never found out exactly where she went or what she told the man she left with. And I've stopped wanting to know. Some truths don't bring comfort. Some details only feed the ache. So I let them stay unanswered. Not out of forgiveness, but because I needed space to be something more than hurt. A few days ago, I packed away our framed photos. Not in a rage, not in grief. Just carefully, like I was putting away a season that had ended. I didn't throw them out. I couldn't. They were real, even if the future we imagined wasn't. Love doesn't become worthless just because it ends. It still happened. It still mattered. And maybe that's the part one needed to make peace with most. I started walking in the evenings. Not far, just around the neighborhood. At first, I kept my head down, avoided familiar faces. But over time, I started noticing things again. The dog with the uneven gait on Ash Street. The kid who rides his scooter in circles around the mailboxes. The older woman who paints flowers on rocks and leaves them near the sidewalk. I used to miss all of that. I don't anymore. The strange thing is, I don't miss her. Not really. I miss the idea of her, the version I believed in, the softness I thought would always be mine. But the real her? The one who slipped away in silence, piece by piece? I'm not chasing her anymore. She left, and in doing so, made space for me to come back to myself. Last night, I cooked dinner. Just for me. Real dinner, not leftovers or takeout or toast. Something that took time. I poured a glass of wine, sat at the table with the chair opposite me still pulled out, and I didn't feel lonely. I felt still. Whole even. There's no poetic ending here. Just small things. Better sleep. Lighter mornings. Less scrolling through old messages. I even started listening to music again, songs I hadn't touched since she left, and they sound different now. Not sad. Not painful. Just familiar. Like part of a story that's no longer mine, but still worth remembering. I didn't get closure. I got air in my lungs, room in my chest, and the slow return of a voice I thought I'd lost, mine. And honestly, that's enough.